A lot of people just make swimming too complicated.
Men and women should not train the same. That might be a hot take, but it's a fact. If you want to be the best in the world, this is exactly what you need to do in training.
Is that going to be satisfying? The chances are it's probably not. Do you think running helps swimming?
Let me get this straight. People think, I see so many parents ruin their kids' swimming careers.
Parents, make sure you are not...
You just surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, no, I'm just trying to...
How much faster can you get and how quickly can you improve?
This is about who slows down the least.
Oh, you can absolutely overtrain when you're 13. I mean, in the last 3 days leading up to a competition, the best thing that you can do, it's that simple.
The most important thing you have to understand is that...
I've got a hot take on this, okay? So this is what most people disagree with me on.
One word, nothing. How does Leon Marchand go 50 meters underwater and it's 400 IM after swimming 350 meters already? How is that possible? Well, I can promise you...
What?
Chances are you're wasting your time.
You stop getting faster when...
There we go. And that is exactly how we get better.
But so-and-so, I don't care. The rumors are true. What's going on, swim fans? Super excited to give you guys this nearly full hour podcast with Coach Leo, where we combine decades of swimming experience to help you improve your swimming goals. Whether you're looking to compete or you have vision of just improving your swimming, being more consistent, we cover so many topics in this podcast. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go. First question, Coach. What makes a fast swimmer?
So I think fast swimming, first of all, begins up here. I think this is the most important thing. I think I come across so many swimmers, especially age group swimmers, who are looking to swim fast. They're so eager to get in a pool and swim fast, but the most important thing is what's going on in here. Your dedication, your commitment to swimming, the things you are doing outside of the pool, not just the things you are doing inside of the pool. So your mentality, how you're looking at training, how you're talking to yourself, if you're positive. I think a lot of those things are just as important, if not more important, what you are doing in the pool.
The single most important thing to being a fast swimmer is how high you ride in the water. I think so many swimmers make the mistake of thinking that they need to train harder, they need to get stronger. You just need to get a better body position, because if you can reduce your drag in the water, you're going to get faster. So many simple things like looking down at the bottom of the pool, or in backstroke inverse, keeping your head back, your hips high in the water. These are the things that actually make you faster immediately. And so many people make the mistake of focusing on all these things that actually take way longer to see any improvement. Like you can train really hard, you can swim 10,000 meters every single day, but if you're training on a bad body position and you don't have the fundamentals right and your technique's not very good, then it doesn't really matter all the training that you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I totally agree with everything that you just said, but I think the reason why I said what I said is because what you're saying is also right, but are you willing to learn those things? So body position is 100% the most important thing to swimming, but as a swimmer, as an age group swimmer, I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are, but are you willing to implement those things into your swimming? So you can be the best swimmer in the world, you could be a great athlete, you can be a great age group swimmer, but are you willing to listen to your coach, first of all? Are you willing to then go to the pool, listen to that information, take in that information and implement it into your swimming? So that's why I think the mentality side of things is just as important as all the technical points.
Yeah, it's a holistic perspective, because if you just focus on like meditating and visualizing your swimming, but you never actually train, it's not going to work. And so I think the best swimmers are able to incorporate everything, and they're able to do it, more importantly, do it consistently over time. Because you could have a really good week of training, and you could have a really good week of just being on point with your gym sessions, you're eating really well, you're sleeping really well, but then you go 2 weeks and you're not consistent at all.
Right.
And you just threw away that 1 week that you had. So the best athletes in general are able to do this really consistently over time.
Right. And I really like the point you just made about consistency, and I think that kind of ties into everybody has good days and bad days. So of course you can have the 2 weeks where everything feels great, you feel fantastic, you get to the pool, you're full of energy, everything is going great, and then of course everybody goes through points where things aren't as great. You're going to get tired, you might be doing your long sets, your hard sets, but again, are you a person who's able to do those things and implement those things and keep doing those things when things go south? You know, I think that's just as important. So consistency throughout good days and bad days. So 100%.
What's the best equipment to use for swimming?
Whoo! Favorite equipment. You know, equipment can do wonders for you. It can also be a huge curse if you use your equipment too often, because then you can become dependent. But if I had to do my own like tier list ranking of equipment, I think at the very top, fins, right? It's the most accessible. You can use them the most frequently. It's going to help you swim faster, improve your technique. Then from there, I think I'm going to go with paddles. Okay. Paddles give you more resistance. You can swim faster. it can help your technique. It can also hurt your technique, and it puts more stress on certain joints. If your technique's not good, you can actually hurt yourself with the paddle. So you got to be careful there. And then I'll go with snorkel, because you can still focus on technique, get the aerobic benefit, your lungs. So I'm going to go fins, paddles, snorkel, and then there are a lot of other pieces of equipment that I want to go into, but I'm curious your takes.
Right. Well, I definitely agree on those. But what I like to do with equipment, I like to think of as, I like to think of swimming in general as a big swimming equation, for example. And when you use swimming equipment, I like to think you kind of take things out of that equation when you're using, for example, fins. So if you want to focus a little bit more on your rotation and your body position, how you are pulling and stuff like this, you kind of put fins on, and that takes that little bit out of the equation, if that makes sense. Right. So that's how I like to think about it. So fins, I definitely agree, are very, very good. I love the fact that you said snorkel. I think snorkel is probably one of the most important ones that I love to use, because again, not only does it kind of take the breathing out of the equation, you can also focus on your head position, and that kind of flattens everything out. Again, tying in with what you said earlier about your body position as well. The piece of equipment that I've recently learned about and I have been using a lot in my training personally is the resistance equipment, which is your parachute and your drag socks. Thanks to you, Faris. This wasn't something I was using before, but since getting back into swimming a little bit more and training for my 50 backstroke, the resistance equipment for me has been a game changer. I think it is really, really good, especially if you're training for sprint events like myself. If you want to get stronger in the water, if you want to start building your tempo and really start to build some power, I highly, highly recommend you guys out there invest in a good pair of drag socks and a parachute, because like I said, I feel phenomenal, especially after I do, for example, I like to do a little pyramid. I like to kind of build my resistance up, then take it all off, and I just feel like I'm flying. So this is my absolute favorite thing to do at the moment. So resistance equipment, I think, is a game changer.
Yep. And actually, just to explain why the resistance equipment can be so valuable, because, you've been using it and you feel so much more power, but why does resistance training make you so much faster? And it's because, think about it, when you're swimming and you're moving through the water, this medium that is 800 times more dense than air, your muscles on their own can only be activated so much by your stroke technique. No matter how good your stroke technique is, you can only pull so much water and engage so many muscle fibers. But if we put additional stress on your body, additional resistance through parachute or drag socks or power tower or any other way to basically keep your stroke the same but slow you down. So now you're going to recruit more muscle fibers, and you only do that for a really short period of time. And if you can do that over a short period of time with a high level of effort, you're going to recruit more muscles, meaning you're going to activate and engage all these extra muscles that it's literally not possible unless you had that extra level of resistance. And so when you take all that off, you recover. Just like lifting weights, you need a recovery period, and that's where the growth actually happens. Then, the next day, the next week, the next month, that's when you're actually going to feel faster, because it's so much easier to engage those muscles because you engage them at full stress with the resistance.
Right.
All right, Leo, we had a question from the fans. How do we drop time from a 26 to a 24 in the 50 freestyle? What do you think?
Well, I think what we just kind of went into with regards to getting stronger in the water, I think is very, very important. And again, I want to kind of talk about the dry land side of things, especially I think when you're looking to drop from 26 to 24, I think these are now some, if you're talking long course meters or short course meters, even yards are still pretty good. We are now talking some big boy numbers. So you got to start, I think you definitely need to start looking into doing some swim specific dry land work, which I think is very, very important. If you're looking to, again, build more power, especially off the blocks, off your turns, your underwaters, you have to make sure you're doing and following a good dry land program. So your plyometrics, your jumps, pull-ups, body weight exercises, I think I'm a really big fan of, like the calisthenic side of things. I personally like to do, like I say, loads of pull-ups, load of deficit push-ups. I like to get strong in certain positions, I like to call it. Again, a lot of kids and swimmers in general go to the gym and they kind of just pump up the weight and they try to get strong, they try to get big. But again, what I like to say is, if swimming was all about who the strongest person is, then the world's strongest people would also be the best swimmers, which is obviously not the case. So you have to make sure you are getting strong in those positions, which is, again, your overhead mobility, your being able to get into certain positions when you swim and when you go to the gym, I think is very, very important. So my personal piece of advice to you guys out there, if you're looking to drop time in your 53, is follow a good dry land program.
Yeah, and if you want to get specific, when you get under 30 seconds or you're trying to get under 30 seconds in the 50 free, now you're at a point where you can actually start to break apart the 50 into a few different pieces, and you should know your time in each of those pieces. So whether it's, if you take a 50 meter pool or a 25 meter pool or even 25 yard pool, you should know how fast you are at halfway. You should know how fast you are to 15 meters. And so when you think about the 50 freestyle or a 50 of any stroke, it's really a few parts. So you have the start, then you go to 15 meters, and that should have a time that you can measure and you can improve and you can focus on specific things. Then you have from about 15 meters to 25 meters, the next 10 meters. So that right there is 2 parts, and you should know your time at 15 meters and know your time at 25 meters. Then you have the second half of the race, and this is where people normally fall apart. And so are you falling apart at the very, very end, or are you falling apart between 25 and 35 or 40 meters? And so if you think about those 3 to 4 parts of the race, when you're getting under 30 seconds, you're trying to get under 30 seconds, now you're at a point where you should be isolating which part of the race you're trying to get better at. And every set and every piece of intentionality you put into your training should be focused on one of those areas. And the faster you go, like when we start to get down to 24 or 23 or 22, this is really the only way you get faster, because you have to isolate the start, the breakout, the 15 meters, your top end speed, maintaining it, not falling apart at the end. Because if you don't do that, well, then what's going to happen is you're going to try and work on everything at the same time, and that's not going to get you any faster than what you've already been able to do. You're going to plateau.
Yep. You just reminded me of a quote Bob Bowman would said, which is, it's not about who goes the fastest, it's about who slows down the least, which I think is very, very important, especially for those 50s and not, like you mentioned, maintaining and make sure you're not falling apart on that back end of your race.
Totally. How far do you have to swim every day to make it to the Olympics? If you want to get to the Olympic level, if you want to be the best in the world, this is exactly what you need to do in training.
I mean, first of all, this definitely depends on the event you're trying to do. So as I mentioned before, I'm training for the 50 backstroke. So the maximum volume I do per session is maybe 50 and 100 meters per day, per session. So going back to the question, I think it definitely depends on which event you're swimming. So if your goal is to make it to the Olympics in 400 IM, I definitely think the volume will vary. And I think the most important thing is specificity. I think this is something we've discussed during our camp here in Egypt, is when you are training, there's no point in just swimming up and down. I believe every single time you get to the pool, there should be a reason and there should be a purpose to what you're doing. What are you practicing to get you to your ultimate goal, which is, for example, your 400 AM. So if you're getting in and you're doing 2 dolphin kicks off every single wall, well, what are you practicing? You're practicing bad habits. So again, if you want to be like the greats, like Leon Marchand, pushing 50 meters on your last 50 or 400 IM, I think the most important thing is just getting into those good habits, and that starts with your training. So if you're getting to the pool, doing your 2 dolphin kicks, well, that's the first thing that needs to change. Get into those good habits. Start with 3, 4, 5, 6, and build to 7 or 8 dolphin kicks, and that's what's going to allow you to then ultimately get better at swimming. It's not necessarily how much you are training, but the specificity of your training and what you're actually doing to get better.
Yeah, totally. And if you want to be specific to get an idea of what are the Olympians doing, I mean, literally this morning you were in the lane next to the bronze medalists in the 10K at our training camp, and we looked at their workout. They're doing 8,500 meters in the morning. And at the top level, I mean, you don't even have to be going to the Olympics. You look at any top Division I program in the United States of America, anyone training for an event over 200 and above, they're hitting 5,000 to 8,000 every single workout. Yep. And they're training in the pool anywhere from 6 to 9 times per week, and then they're doing 3 to 4 out of water training sessions per week. So in total, we're looking at about 20 to 30 hours per week of training or specific recovery. Now, just like you were saying, if you're training for the 50 meter freestyle or the 100 butterfly, you probably don't need to do 8,000 meters every single day, 9 times per week, 9 sessions per week. But at some point, you do need to put in the work. So whether it's 3,000 to 4,000 of very intentional focused swimming, or more of an aerobic base of hitting 6,000 to 8,000 per workout, this is normal for anyone who's training to be at the highest level, and to get a glimpse into like a Leon Marchand or what Michael Phelps was doing back in the day. I mean, they're hitting over 50,000 meters per week consistently for many weeks in a row in their peak training. They taper off of that. They're swimming a lot less distance. So if you think about yourself and you're swimming 4,000 meters per workout and you're getting absolutely destroyed and you're trying to be world class in the 400 IM, there's a gap. Now, it doesn't mean you go and double your workouts tomorrow if you want to be at that level, but you need to consider what is the time and effort that you're willing to put in if that's the thing that you want to achieve. If you want to achieve at the highest level, that's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think another good point to mention is the fact that it's not all about quantity either. I think you can be doing, as you mentioned, your 8,500 meter sessions, but if 6,000 of that is just you swimming up and down, well, again, there's no quality in that. It's just quantity. So I think the question is good in a sense, but I think you should always start with mastering. If you can't do 8,000, if you can't do a 2,000 meter session whilst maintaining quality, there's no point in you trying to do an 8,000 meter session. So quality first, and once you are able to maintain those technical points, and once you are able to do those underwater kicks, then you can start looking at doing further sessions and longer distances. But I think the most important thing is make sure you are doing things right before adding any volume or anything else.
So a question here from the fans: how does swimming differ if you're 13 versus 33 versus 63? And I can speak on behalf of two of those.
Yeah, please.
But in terms of training, I mean, when you're younger, like, what's the difference? Like, why does it matter, to be more specific, if you're 13 versus 63? You may have the same goal. You want to swim fast in a 50 freestyle. You may actually be the exact same time. You may be 63 years old and you're 30 seconds, you want to break 30, and you're 13 years old and you want to break 30. Same goal, same everything. The difference is that when you're 13, you can probably recover faster. I mean, not probably, but you will recover faster because you're young, you're growing, you're developing, you're getting stronger naturally. So as long as you get 8 to 9 hours of sleep per day, you eat well, and you show up to practice, you will get faster. Now the question is, how much faster can you get and how quickly can you improve? Because a 13-year-old has a lot more room to go. Whether you're a guy or girl, you can get taller, get stronger. There's a lot more development that can be done there. But when it comes to training, the older you get, you need more recovery time between the sessions, and you have to be even more specific with the kind of training that you do, because you can't afford to not recover. Because if you don't give yourself enough recovery time and you end up swimming more than you need to, you're not going to be able to hit the next workout with the right level of focus and intensity. Whereas when you're 13, you can actually have a really bad workout, and the next day you'll feel amazing and you can hit it really hard. When you're 33, I already feel that now, you're not going to be as fresh until maybe 24, 48 hours. And when you're 63, God willing we get there, you're going to end up needing even more time to recover. Your sleep is going to be even more important. So when it comes to actually how you train the older you get, you need to get more and more specific the older you get. And you have to put even more focus on taking a holistic approach. And that includes your recovery, your sleep, your nutrition, getting a massage, whatever it may be. So same goal, same speed, but the style of training and the approach to all of those holistic things becomes much more important the older that you get.
Totally. I love what you said, but I think the way I like to put it is you can only work as hard as you can recover. I think this is very important. And I love what you said with, of course, taking longer to recover as you get older. But would you say you can still overtrain when you're 13?
Oh, you can absolutely overtrain when you're 13. I mean, it's actually easier to overtrain when you're 13 or 12 or 15. Because you feel invincible and maybe you have nothing else to do. Like, you go to school, you have like 6 hours a day that you can theoretically train. But if swimming becomes your life, it really shouldn't at age 12, 13, 14. You should be interested in other things. It's okay to play some video games. It's okay to read a book. Read a book. Go read a book, kids. And so by having more of like a well-rounded nature, it's actually going to prevent you from burning yourself out. Because at that age, it's actually more mental too. Because if you're only thinking about swimming and you're only obsessing over it, I guess at any age, that's actually going to hurt you as well. So you don't want to overtrain. You don't want to overthink it necessarily, because you just need to do what's necessary to reach your desired goal. And if you're 13 or 63 and you're trying to get faster in the 50 freestyle, there are really only a few things you need to worry about, and you don't need to spend 5 hours a day training.
Totally. And I think this is a great lesson for parents as well. I mean, I come across it all the time. I coach many kids. And as a parent, I mean, I haven't got kids, but I can imagine it's very, very easy to get carried away and wanting your Johnny to be the best at swimming, which I completely understand. But as you just mentioned, and as I just said, your body can only work as hard as it can recover. So if you are pushing your child through those 8, 9, 10, 11 sessions a week when they're 10, 11, 12, they don't need that, right? I mean, as long as a child enjoys it, especially when you're 13 or under, you just have to make sure you're going to training, you are meeting your friends, you are having fun. Of course, you have to make sure you're doing things right, but if you don't enjoy what you are doing, there's no point in it. The only person you are doing this for is yourself. So if your parent or your mom or your dad is the person who's pushing you to go to training, the chances are you're doing something wrong, okay? So you should be going to training for the sake of you getting better, not anybody else. So parents, make sure you are not pushing your kids To an extent.
Yep. And actually, let's riff on this a little bit. I see so many parents ruin their kids' swimming careers, and I've seen it over the years now. I mean, like almost 2 decades now since I've been either a coach or a teenage athlete, and I have seen so many swimmers end their career because their parents shoved swimming down their throat. The kid loved swimming, but they grew to hate it because of the overbearing nature of their parents. If you're a parent, it's your job to love and hug your child and encourage them, but the swimming has to be done for themselves. And if you feel they need to try harder, or if you feel they're lazy, it's actually a reflection on how you've raised them. And that's the most painful thing to hear as a parent, because you want the best for them. But in some ways, you almost have to undo the guidance that you've given them because you've pushed them in a direction of trying to please you instead of them finding the joy and love for self-improvement in the sport, which is swimming in this case.
But yeah, totally. And I think it's very easy as well as a parent to get carried away and trying to win trophies and medals. And like you just said, it's not all about that, right? If you are going to a meet and you're 11 or 12 or 13 and you get a half a second PB, this is the most important thing in the world. You have just broken your own world record. This is the fastest time you have ever gone in your life, right? If you come dead last, doesn't matter, you've just improved. It's like I say, if you go to the Olympics and everybody pulls out last day, right? Nobody goes. Leon Marchand decided he wants to sleep in today. Nobody goes to the Olympics. You're the only person in 200 IM Olympic final. You go and win gold and you go 3 minutes, right? You go PB plus 10. Is that going to be satisfying? The chances are it's probably not, right? There was no competition. You've just gone. You've just won an Olympic medal.
Because you had more in yourself.
Right, exactly. So if you went to the Olympic, you made an Olympic final, you come dead last and you take 5 seconds of your 200 IM PB. Now this is a win. I think that's so much more important than trying to chase these materialistic things of medals, trophies and whatnot. So
we got a question from the fans. You got a race in 3 days. What do I do to go fast?
One word, nothing. Right? If you are 3 days out from your competition, you should have already done all the work. The work is already done. 3 days, again, I say this all the time. Kids, 3 days out, they start eating healthy. They start doing 3 times a week. There's 3 times a day, so they start doing triples. I'm going to go to training in the morning. I'm going to do a gym session. I'm going to start doing an afternoon session. I'm 3 days out. I want to swim fast. That's not how it works. For you to swim fast and for you to have a good competition, the work should have been done 6 months ago. 3 days out, your only goal is to relax. The hard work's been done. Taper, have fun, know that you've worked hard enough. Hopefully, if you haven't, then I mean, the most important thing I like to say is if you get to a competition and you don't get the results you want, the number one question you should always ask yourself is, have I done everything in my power to get the results I wanted? So if the case was you 3 days out asking yourself, oh wait, what can I do now? Well, it's too late. The chances are you haven't worked hard enough in the previous 6 months, right? So 3 days out, to answer your question, enjoy, have fun, and get ready for the competition. There's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do, and there's really nothing I can add on to that because the work has been done. And maybe it wasn't 6 months, but the last 3 months is where the work happened. So what I would say is in the last 3 days leading up to a competition, the best thing that you can do is to live in the moment, to have gratitude for the opportunity to even go to this swimming competition. Even if it's at the same pool that you always train at, just live in that moment. When you step onto the blocks, take a deep breath and just enjoy that experience. Enjoy that moment because it won't last forever. And even if you do swim and you're an old man like me and older, it's still special in that moment.
Yep.
So enjoy the experience, and what's going to happen is going to happen regardless of how much pasta you think you need to eat the day before, right? Obviously do the basic things like go to sleep at the same time every day. Stay hydrated, but don't go and drink 3 liters of water when you wake up and do things that you don't normally do.
Yeah. Totally. And just to finish things off, I love the fact that you mentioned the word gratitude. I think this is so important, especially for younger kids out there and even adults. I think it's so important. I mean, I live in Dubai, so I say this all the time. It's like kids, they have a parent, they have mums and dads who are ready to do anything for them. They take them to training, they spend money on their tech suits, and they're ready to do anything. So this is, you're in a situation where, I mean, 95% of, even 99% probably percent of children in this world don't have the opportunity. You live in Dubai, again, I'm just talking from where I live. But so many kids have this opportunity of, as you mentioned, of racing and going to these meets and meeting new people and just having a coach who's willing to get them better at swimming. So I think gratitude is probably one of the most important things to also making sure you're able to perform. So I love the fact that you said that.
Yeah, and a swimmer who practices gratitude is the best swimmer. And not only that, the best human being. And when you're a good human being, you attract that positive energy, which is only going to help you improve further.
Yeah.
So
You just opened a can of worms.
live a life of gratitude.
Yeah. I love it. Like I just mentioned, I think you've just opened a can of worms, size. But like with swimming, and again, this is another important lesson for parents, is it's not all about winning. I think the reason why I love swimming is because it's so difficult. Like going to the pool twice a day, doing 10,000 meters, staring at a black line is very, very hard. So the lessons you learn within the sport are the lessons you will take throughout the rest of your life. So the discipline, the hard work, the doing things that you don't want to do and then going and doing them anyway is something that's it's far beyond just swimming, right? So I think, like I said, the swimming is all about life lessons. And even if you don't make it to the Olympics, it's totally fine. You have now come out of the sport with all these life lessons that you didn't have before. And again, I'm in a very similar position now where I tried swimming and I believe that I've done everything I can to try and make it in swimming. But I can now say that I've moved away from the sport and look where I am. I'm in beautiful Egypt with Faris, with all these amazing people. And the only reason I'm here is because of swimming. The person I am today is because of swimming. So it's not all about winning. It's not all about just getting medals. There's so much more in the sport than just that.
Next one. Should men and women train differently?
Ooh.
Faris, take off.
Men and women should not train the same. Okay. They're two different. You just surprised?
Sorry?
You surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, no, I'm just trying to think of how I can answer this question. But
No, the reality is men and women, especially as they get older, they're not the same. Men and women don't train the same. They don't swim the same. Their times are not the same. So to think that you can have a one size fits all, and this goes beyond men versus women. This is like, you can't train for the 400 IM the same way you train for the 50 freestyle, the same way you train when you're 15 versus 55. Right there, most of it is the same. You want to work on good technique. You want to have some level of specificity. You want to work hard. These are all things that we should do, men or women, it doesn't matter. But when you start to actually get serious about swimming fast, men and women's body compositions are different. Recovery is different. The way that they build muscle and maintain muscle is completely different. And so when you get into higher levels of training and competition, men and women do not train the same way, and they don't taper the same way either. For example, let's get specific. So when it comes to like building strength, men can put on more muscle more quickly than women, and they can leverage it in their races faster and more effectively than women. So if you think about a split between swimming and what you're doing in the gym, yes, you want to be strong, but certain body types and men specifically can actually leverage the gym more than women. That might be a hot take, but it's a fact. Yeah. And so if you're a woman and you want to get stronger, it doesn't mean don't go to the gym, but it just means you're going to have to be even more specific with the things you do in the gym to make sure you're actually putting on the muscle. That the guy who, especially if you're younger, you're just going to put on the muscle doing literally anything in the gym. So that's one area. Now, when it comes to getting into the pool, if you're a male, your body position is going to be different than a woman in the water. Just simply the way your muscle fat composition is on your body. So when it comes to finding a high body position, everything from the drills that you do to the way that you actually train with a pull buoy, with paddles, with fins, these all impact your body position, and men and women have a natural body position that is different. Men have more difficulty often in keeping a high body position. Their legs start to sink, especially the more muscular that you are, your legs are going to just carry more muscle and your legs are just going to sink faster, which means at the end of a race, you're more likely to die because your legs are sinking and you have a worse body position. When you look at open water swimming, you see this on the extreme other side. You see that women are able to be faster than men in open water swimming. Why is this? Because they can maintain a higher body position for longer, and in the super long endurance open water, a higher body fat composition can actually work in your benefit for these super long races that are hours and hours at a time. And the male with a lower body fat percentage is not going to have those reserves to pull from and keep that buoyancy over an extended period of time. And then the last thing I'll put when it comes to men versus women is taper. And this is probably one of the biggest differences between men and women when it comes to training and how they prepare for a competition. When you're a male, depending on how much muscle is on your frame, that needs more recovery than if you have less muscle. So just by default, because men have more higher muscle percentage on their frame than women do, you need more time to recover from that for your muscles to have the opportunity to grow and to really maximize their potential than if you have less muscle. And so if you're a female listening to this, it might mean that you don't need as much taper. And if you taper a lot, meaning you drop your weights, you drop your endurance in the pool, you're actually going to get out of shape more quickly than the male counterpart. And if you stop lifting weights and if you stop doing all these things, you're going to lose muscle more quickly. Men can maintain muscle on their frame a lot easier than women for longer. So when it comes to the difference between men and women, it's pretty clear there's a massive difference at the elite level for competition. If you're just getting started and you're 15 years old, it really doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Focus on good body position, eat right, sleep right, and the rest will take care of itself. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said is totally right, but I think it's also a very important important lesson and just something to keep note of as coaches as well. I know a lot of coaches try to push kind of the same thing, whether it's male or female, or like you mentioned, not one size fits all, right? But as a coach, I think it's just very, very important you know the difference and that you are approaching things differently, especially at elite level, totally. So Coach Fares, the question is, how can I swim longer, more efficiently?
Swim high in the water. It's that simple. Because if your legs are dragging, if your head position's off, you're going to be inefficient. And the more you're inefficient, the more tired you're going to get the longer that you swim. I know it sounds simple, and I say this all the time, but it all starts with your head position and really making sure, this is the second part, you not only have a good body position, but you're training your body position at the highest level for the longest period of time. Let me be specific. So instead of just swimming 1,000 meters straight, you're going to need to break it up and you're going to train your body to swim shorter durations at a faster rate of speed. So to put some numbers behind that, let's say you can swim 1,000 meters in 20 minutes. That means you're swimming 2 minutes per 100 meters. That same swimmer could probably swim 1 minute and 40 seconds for an individual 100. And they're probably not even going as fast as they can. So that's a significant change from 2 minutes to 1 minute 40. That's a 20-second difference. So now let's break it up further. Let's say 50 meters. That same swimmer, instead of going a 140 pace, could probably go a 130 pace. They can go 45 seconds in that 50. So what if instead of doing 1,000 meters straight, we just do 50 meters and we swim it in 45 seconds? And so instead of training our body how to swim an average speed of 1 minute per 50, we're now going to do it in 45 seconds. So if you want to swim more efficiently over a longer period of time, you need to train your body to have good body position, but then also just train at a higher rate of speed, a higher average rate of speed. This applies for literally every distance of swimming, every single stroke. Let's say you want to be good at a 200 breaststroke. You could just swim a kilometer of breaststroke, or you can swim short segments of 25 or 50 meters, not even 100 meters, and train your body how to swim at a higher body position, shorter durations, more intensity, and more focus. It doesn't mean you're going fast. It just means you're swimming with more intentionality around the distance per stroke that you're taking, the body level that you have in the water, and just being more efficient overall.
Yeah. I love it. So if you're out there and you're hoping to break that magic 2-minute barrier for a 2K swim and you're training going 2:05 average, I mean, you can't expect to get to race there and magically go sub 2. It's not going to work. So as Fares just said, you have to make sure you are reprogramming your body and training your body to swim at those faster speeds. And what I wanted to add is that I think a lot of people just make swimming too complicated. I think I like to keep it simple. The only 3 ways in which you can swim faster is pull more powerful, pull more water, you can kick more, and you can decrease drag. So if you are practicing at least one of those things when you're training or when you're doing your sets or whatever, you are ultimately getting better. So a lot of people go to the pool, they start thinking about their head position, their body position, their pull, their kick, their rotation. It's impossible to try and focus on 10 different things at once. So I think a huge aspect to getting better at swimming is also just making sure you are taking small steps at a time and keeping things simple. So if you know that you lack rotation, focus on rotation for the next 3 months. And then when you can rotate consistently without always having to remind yourself to rotate, that's when you truly know you have learned something. Then you can start moving on to your pull and your head position and all these things. So just make sure you're keeping things simple, take it one step at a time, and I think that's when you'll start seeing a lot of progress as well. Coach Fares, I think this is a good one. Do you think running helps swimming?
Running is probably the best and worst thing a swimmer can do. And it really depends on where you're at in your swimming journey. Like if you're maybe our age, adult, older, and you just want to be fit and you want to go out and explore the world and you want to go to run clubs on Saturdays and have coffee, and by all means, go and run. Enjoy the experience, do the sightseeing, and enjoy it. Just know you're hurting your swimming performance in the process. And if you're really serious about competing and you want to get faster, running could be the worst thing that you do for your body. Because think about it, running is a form of cardio. It's aerobic, but it's very lower body intense. And what you're doing is you're putting a lot of impact on your body. So your feet, when you run, are in a flex position. When you're swimming, especially in the long axis strokes and freestyle and butterfly and backstroke, you're pointing your toes. You want to have a level of like a nimbleness to your frame in the water. And the more you run, the more you tighten up those muscles, you put more impact on your body, and you actually hurt your flexibility in the water. So again, if you're just really focused on living life and you want to go out and explore and do other forms of fitness, do Pilates, do yoga, do running, do weightlifting, do squash, paddle. What's the kids are doing these days? Paddle? They're playing paddle. Do all of that stuff. But if you want to go to the Olympics, no one's running.
Right.
No one's running. They're in the pool, they're in the weight room, they're working on mobility, strength, balance, yoga. These are the things that you need to do if you're looking for performance. So it's a double-edged sword. Running is great for your overall fitness, but it can hurt you in the pool.
Yeah. And I think if your goal is to build endurance, that's you should be doing that in the pool anyway. Like if you're going to run to try and get fitter, well, you must be doing something wrong in the pool, because like swimming is already hard enough. Why are you then having to be running as well to build fitness? So you don't need to run. I don't think you need to run. As a swimmer, again, I mentioned the dryland programming, doing swim specific stuff. You can do those things, but if your goal is to get better at swimming, and like you mentioned, there's no need to run. Like your fitness, your endurance is built in the pool, not by running. So I totally agree. So Coach Faris, how do you think the stroke mechanics and stroke technique changes from the 50 freestyle to the 200 freestyle? What are the differences?
Yeah, I think this applies for every stroke, but maybe let me cover one of the strokes and you cover freestyle. Sure. So I'm going to talk about breaststroke, and this can be applied for the other strokes as well, but let's focus on breaststroke. The 50 breaststroke, it's all about power per stroke. You got to have a high tempo. Yep. You can't wait around. But in the 200 breaststroke, your distance per stroke becomes a lot more important. You literally count how many strokes you take in a 200 breaststroke, even a 200 butterfly race. Your pullouts become a lot more important. They're a lot longer. Your breath control becomes more important in a 200 breaststroke. So yes, you're swimming for longer. Your average speed per 50 is going to be slower in a 200 compared to a 50, but the tempo that you have is going to be faster in a 50, and you need to be a lot more patient with your stroke in the 200 as compared to the 50, where you have to be a lot more aggressive. But I think freestyle has some different intricacies, so tell us about that.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, if you are looking to swim faster, especially on the 50s or the shorter distances of freestyle, the most important thing you have to understand is that if you are simply moving your arms twice as quick and pulling half the amount of water, you are not moving, and you're not moving any quicker, right? This is what a lot of people don't understand. They start spinning their arms, their head is down, they're kicking, they're just pulling really fast, their tempo is really high, but they're just missing their whole distance per stroke. You are, like I say, you are moving your arms twice as fast, you are pulling half the amount of water, so how are you actually swimming faster? You are not. So in order to be able to swim fast, you have to make sure you are able to an extent, maintain a good distance per stroke. So you cannot just enter, pull halfway, bring your arm out, and then spin your arms around. So if you are looking to start swimming fast in a 50 freestyle, you want to make sure not only are you working on your tempo, which is also very, very important, you are also keeping in mind that you have to maintain a good distance per stroke. So do not try to increase your tempo. Do not try to increase your tempo unless you are able to maintain your distance per stroke. I've said the same thing like 3 times, sorry.
No, it's fine. And actually, let me add on to that, mechanics specifically. So in like a 50 freestyle, you're not going to breathe.
Yes.
Very much. Maybe you breathe once, twice, 3 times, but really the focus is keeping your head in line and just generating as much power as possible per stroke. When you look at a 200 race, really 100 and up, you breathe every 2 strokes. And I think mechanically, that's one of the biggest differences between a 50 and anything that's longer than 100. If you look at the best swimmers in the world, they're all breathing every 2 strokes. Some will breathe every 3, but there's like a rhythm to the stroke. The 50, the rhythm's all about maximum power per stroke, head down, don't breathe. And so these are two of probably the biggest differences, but everything that you mentioned, what I was saying about the breaststroke still applies, where the tempo is different. If you just move your arms faster, but you're not pulling any more water, you're actually going to get tired more quickly, in which case your average speed is going to go down even faster. So you got to, again, we don't want to overcomplicate this, but just simplify it to efficient technique. The longer the race, you're able to be even more patient with the stroke, but it starts from a place of like a max distance per stroke. And then the shorter the race, the more power and tempo that you apply.
Totally. I think a really good one as well is I don't actually think breathing is that bad. I know a lot of coaches, I mean, 50 freestyle, of course, as you mentioned, our goal is to try and minimize our breathing, but I've come across a lot of coaches and a lot of swimmers where they are the whole no breathing and trying to limit your breathing in races such as 100 and 200 is like you want to limit your breathing, which I personally don't agree with. I think this might be a little bit of a hot take, but if you are able to take a breath in a way that it doesn't affect your stroke, I don't think breathing is a bad thing. As we all know, your body requires oxygen to operate, right? So if you are trying to minimize the amount you're breathing over a 2-minute race, you are simply going to die. Your legs, your body is going to shut down. So I think, again, as you mentioned, all the world-class swimmers, the Olympic level swimmers are breathing every 2. So again, a lot of coaches, they're trying to push the whole breathing every 5 or 6. I even hear like 7 sometimes. So it's like a breath control thing, I totally understand. But if you are trying to breathe every 7 in a 200 freestyle, I mean, you will die. So going back to what I was saying, breathing every 2, I don't think there's no issue with it. Hence the reason why world's best swimmers are breathing every 2. So even a lot of younger swimmers, I know we're trying to encourage the balanced stroke, which I totally agree with. You can still breathe every 2, but work both sides. You can just make sure you're breathing to the same side, whichever way of the pool you're swimming up, right? So I don't personally think breathing is bad, as long as you're able to take breaths in a way that it doesn't affect your stroke. So of course, if you are breathing and you're taking half a second pause every time you're taking a breath, that's a little bit different. That just means you have to work on your breathing efficiency and making sure you're taking your breath at the right time with the right technique. But I think breathing is totally fine, because your body requires oxygen.
I've got a hot take on this, okay? So this is what most people disagree with me on. I don't like when people breathe every 3 strokes.
I totally agree. I think it's true. I think you can... Sorry.
So like the reality is, let me get this straight. You think that your stroke is so special and so symmetric that you don't need to breathe every 2, you can breathe every 3, because your lungs are 50% more efficient than the best swimmers in the world who all breathe every 2.
Right.
You're just some unicorn. You are something special, that you want to keep your stroke symmetrical. Therefore, you're willing to take 50% less oxygen by breathing every 3 instead of every 2. And you're willing to sacrifice rhythm, which contributes to stroke length. So if you look at the best swimmers in the world, we look at the people who just won the Olympics in the 1500, we have Katie Ledecky and we have Bobby Fink. How many times do they breathe? How often do they breathe?
Every 2.
Every 2. So until you can come up with something special, breathing every 2, this is my hot take, is way more efficient than breathing every 3. But so-and-so, I don't care. I don't care. If you're watching this video, you're not them. Unless you are, shout out. So make sure you're breathing every 2 to build rhythm. Yes, you need to have balance. But when it comes to racing, every 2 for anything over 100, that's the game plan.
I totally agree. I think this is, again, something I come across so much. And again, of course, there are, even we did it this morning. We did 450
as a set. Yeah,
as a set, exactly.
Yeah,
like a stroke discipline, lung capacity, warm up exercise, which is totally fine. But if you're going into a 200 freestyle and you are just taking a breath whenever you want, or you're trying to breathe every 3 or 5, the word you mentioned is rhythm. I think that's so important. Again, breathing every 2 allows you to create that rhythm. Gallop freestyle, I'm sure you guys have all heard about it. If you want to gallop, if you want to find that rhythm, get into a good tempo, breathing every 2 is the way.
Recently, there have been a lot of murmurs about a new stroke being introduced to the sport of swimming. And the rumors are true. It's called the underwater dolphin kick. It is officially the 5th stroke in swimming. And a lot of swimmers want to know, how do you master this 5th stroke? Because it is faster than the front crawl, faster than butterfly, faster than backstroke, way faster than breaststroke. So if you are a swimmer and you are trying to get better at the underwater dolphin kick, this is exactly what you need to do.
Well, first of all, Faris, why is there a 50-meter limitation on every single race apart from breaststroke that we do in swimming?
Because it's so fast. We want to see swimming. So if you spend the whole time underwater, which is the fastest stroke, we're not going to see any swimming. So it's probably a good idea to maximize your first 15 meters and leverage the underwater speed, because that's what you're allowed to do.
Yeah. Thank you. In regards to making your underwaters better, of course, there's a lot of flexibility involved. Dry land helps and doing certain exercises helps, but I think the number one thing is practice. There's no magic to it. There's not a pill you can take that's going to make you good at underwaters. Good underwaters come from practice. Again, I see it so often. Well, how does Leon Marchand go 50 meters underwater and it's 400 IM after swimming 350 meters already? How is that possible? Well, I can promise you, you watch him in training, he pushes his underwaters on everything that he does. And this is not just his main sets. He gets in, he does his warm-up, he pushes underwaters. He does his main set, he pushes his underwaters. I promise you, probably even does his swim downs and still pushes his underwaters.
Yep.
So it's not a case of you trying to do something differently. It's just a case of you practicing those things. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, interview, live, show, whatever, you have to make sure you are getting into good habits. So if you are 11 years old and you want to get better at underwaters, start with 3 dolphin kicks, regardless of what you are doing. Butterfly, backstroke, freestyle. Do 3 dolphin kicks in every single session. Once you are comfortable doing 3 dolphin kicks, you can then move on to 4. Once you're happy with 4 and can do 4 every single time, then you can move up to 5. Like I say, this is how you get better underwaters. Practice, practice, and more practice.
Yeah, and actually I want to add in the science behind this, a little bit more of a mechanical perspective, because everything Leo said is correct. You have to practice it over and over. So while you're practicing it every single day of every set, every workout, you have to make sure that you are mechanically optimizing and making your body as efficient as possible when it moves through the water. So if you take like a fish, for example, or a dolphin, why is a fish so much faster than a human? Like, we as humans are land creatures. We walk with our legs. We can run way faster than we can swim, but a fish can swim way faster than we can run. So why is it? Why is it that a fish can move through a medium that is 800 times more dense than air faster than what we can do on land? And it's because when they're in the water, a fish can leverage its entire body length to create propulsion. So a fish can literally move from the very front of the fish through the end of the tail. It can use every single millimeter of surface area in both directions to propel forward. Now, we as humans, we can't do that because we have joints, we have knees, we have body parts that don't bend in both directions. And so that is automatically going to make us slower. But the best underwater kickers are able to make their body just like a dolphin and maximize every square inch of their body, every square centimeter. They're able to propel in both directions, kicking up and down. And one of those kicks is more powerful than the other, but the faster you can get to the up kick and the down kick, the faster you're going to be underwater. And so a big mistake a lot of swimmers make is that they just train really hard, but their dolphin kick itself is not very efficient. They're not warming it up correctly. They're not kicking in different planes of motion. So you want to make sure you're kicking on your stomach, you're kicking on your back, on your side, with fins, without fins, with drag socks, with parachute. And by creating all these different stressors of your body, you're able to engage more muscle fibers, and that's how you're going to kick faster underwater. And that's what a fish does naturally. A fish or a dolphin, whatever, they're able to move so fast through the water because literally every part of the fish helps them move forward through the water. I mean, literally a black marlin can move 130 kilometers an hour underwater. I mean, think about that. That is faster than a speedboat. It's faster than anything. How are they able to do that? How is a swordfish able to go 100 kilometers an hour underwater? Because it's able to leverage its entire body length and move through the water like a torpedo. So if you want to be faster at dolphin kick, you have to train every plane of motion and practice, practice, practice.
Going back to what we mentioned earlier in a conversation about keeping things simple, right? If you are doing anything that's sending you in any other direction but forward, you're wasting time. Right, so we see people who are bobbing up and down, they're swimming freestyle, they're crossing over, they're pulling to the side, they're swimming in zigzags, they're going up and down. The only direction we want to swim in is forward. So if you're doing anything apart from setting yourself forward, the chances are you're wasting your time. So Faris, as you know, everybody out there is looking to be the greatest swimmer of all time. But what are the greatest swimmers of all time doing that most people are not, that's making them so good?
They show up. They show up when others don't want to. They wake up at 5 in the morning and they get out of bed when they could hit snooze. They push themselves when the people in the lane next to them are tired and give up. They do it every day of every week of every year. And if you do that for a decade, you're going to be pretty good. And I think this is something that I've realized now in life beyond swimming. If you're just really consistent at doing something and you're able to improve, you're not just doing it blindfolded and you shut off your brain. If you're able to engage in the thing that you're doing and you're focused on just getting a little bit better, just 1% better every hour of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year, you will be incredible after 10 years. The problem is that Johnny or Sally at age 10 can't see that far into the future. And so they never make it to age 20. And this applies beyond swimming. And so if you're 10, 20, 30, 70 years old, you have to have a longer vision. And if you're able to stick with something super consistently, just get that 1% better, you're going to be incredible at whatever it is that you're focused on. And that is what the best swimmers in the world are doing. And that's what the best people in the world are doing, and whatever it is they chose to focus on.
I recently heard a really great analogy from Bob Bowman, again, watching a lot of his podcasts and how he thinks about training. And of course, as you know, he's coached a lot of great swimmers, Michael Phelps, Leon. The way he likes to think about goals and making sure, obviously, you're getting better. It's, for example, if I asked you to eat an elephant, tomorrow morning I said, look, I put this elephant in front of you and you have to eat it. Are you going to be able to do that?
I'm going to take one little bite at a time.
There we go. And that is exactly how we get better. So this elephant, you want to look at this elephant as your ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. So as I just said, if I asked you to eat it by tomorrow morning, you won't be able to do that. Not possible. But if you are able to find a little piece of the elephant, which you are able to eat every single session, whether it's in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, doesn't matter. You will eventually eat the elephant, which is your ultimate goal, right? So if you're out there and you're a swimmer, you're an athlete, whoever you are, if your goal is to get better at something, you have to find that little piece which you are able to get out of every single session. So if you're coming out of a session and you've just got out and you think, well, what have I just done? I've just done an 8K aerobic session with fins and paddles and I have thought about nothing throughout my 2-hour session. Well, the chances are you've practiced nothing. Again, as I've just mentioned, you have to find something. If you are able to improve by 0.01% every single day, eventually, regardless of how long it takes you, you will get to your goal. So going back to consistency and being able to do things over and over and over again, regardless of how you feel, is the magic. Mm-hmm. This is how you get better.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to go one layer deeper on this elephant analogy, because I think people they've heard the elephant analogy, but they don't get it. It's not about eating the elephant. It's about the process of taking a bite every single day. So if you translate that to swimming, it's not about, oh, I want to swim really fast. Oh, I want to work on my dolphin kick. Oh, I want to improve my flip turns. No, it's the process of going to practice every day and giving it your all. If you're inconsistent with going to practice, it's about building the system and the method to make sure it's in your calendar and not hitting the snooze on your alarm. That is the bite of the elephant. It's not about, oh, I have to have this certain breathing pattern 5 times a workout or something. No, it's about the process. And that's what the bite is of the elephant. So find what your equivalent is of eating an elephant one bite at a time in your own swimming journey.
And I think the whole process, not the outcome, is also very important for when you're racing. I think this is a huge mistake a lot of swimmers make. It's they just think, I want to go and break a minute for 100 freestyle. Well, the first question you have to ask yourself is, how am I going to do that? Mm-hmm. And of course, it starts in your training. And again, are you doing a 6-beat kick? Are you pulling as much water as you can? Is your head in the right position? Is your body nice and flat on the surface? If you are able to do these things consistently, then when you get to racing and you are able to focus on these things and execute these things, of course, the time will be inevitable. The time will be the bonus of doing things right, with the outcome of doing things right. So I think the process, as you mentioned, is just so much more important than just trying to focus on what the outcome is. So like I say, if you're just able to execute things correctly and do things right, that's when fast swimming will happen. Faris, you're getting old.
I'm getting old.
At what age do you stop getting faster?
You stop getting faster when you have exhausted all of your options to improve. And what I mean by that is you are no longer trying to find those small pieces of improvement. You're no longer willing to work out in a smarter way. You're no longer willing to improve your technique. You're no longer willing to put in more time in the gym and get physically stronger. You're no longer willing to spend the time and money to recover, to get the massage, to have better nutrition, to get better sleep. That's when you stop getting faster. And so that applies for 99% of people. If you are in that 1% that maximize all of those things in your teenage years and your 20s and your 30s, and now you're listening to this and you're 45 years old, you've been to the Olympic Games, you've trained 20 to 30 hours a week for a decade, you may be past your prime. You may stop getting faster at that point. But for the 99% of people who are listening to this, you can still get faster. You still have more room in the tank. You have something left, and it really comes down to your own prioritization of your goals. Is this something that you really want to focus on? Because you'd be surprised how fast you can go after your prime. And so I use myself as an example. I swam through college. I did all 4 years. I swam the 100 breaststroke. It was my best event. I was 58 point something in the 100 breaststroke. And I've since, over the last 10 years, I've gone under a minute in the 100 breaststroke over 10 times in multiple years. Last year I went best time, 50 breaststroke, best time. Even in longer events, if I chose to focus on that event, could probably still go faster. And I think I'm just one example of many people who have gone into their 20s and 30s and 40s, and they've continued to get faster because they just focus on the things that they know they need to do to improve. And again, I wasn't in that 1% of people who train 20 to 30 hours a week from age 15 to 30. If you're in that category, you're trying to maintain. But for everyone else, you've got room to go. So Coach Leo, we've had a great conversation here, but the last question is maybe the most important. If someone is serious about getting better at swimming and they really want to improve, maybe they want to compete, what do? How do they go about it? How do they think about it?
Well, I think the most important thing is enjoying it. I think having fun in what you do is probably one of the most important things in sports and swimming in general. If you're going to training and you don't want to be there, you don't want to listen to your coach, you probably shouldn't be going. So I think finding joy and like I say, fun in what you're doing is very, very important. Being surrounded by like-minded people is very, very important. Again, the retreats that we do here in Egypt, we've done in Greece and Turkey, I think the reason why it's so good is because we are surrounded by people who also want to get better, who are also serious about getting faster. So it doesn't have to be a retreat, but it could be just within your sessions. If you are, again, we had this conversation earlier, you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. If you're hanging around people who are not serious about getting faster, chances are you're probably not going to get faster either. So just making sure you're in the right environment, the right atmosphere, around the right people will ultimately and most likely help you get faster too.
Yeah, and let's get real here. If you've made it this far in the video and you've been watching for like the last hour of us talking, you're obviously pretty serious about learning how to get faster, how to improve, how to better yourself. And if that sounds like you, then I think we can help you, because we really only look to help people who are serious about getting better, because it's no fun if your head's not in the right spot. So if you're serious about getting faster and you want to work with myself or our team to help you reach your goals, then check out the link below. You can apply to work with us. You can also check out some of our in-person events where you can work with Coach Leo and myself and others on really a one-to-one basis, where we are in person at beautiful exotic locations all over the world. Right now, we're at a training camp here in beautiful Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. We have other events coming up, so we'd love to see you at one of those. And like I said, enjoy the process. Coach Leo said it as well. This is something that you should be grateful for. It's amazing to be in an environment where you can swim and you can be one with the water. So if you want to improve in that journey, then I look forward to working with you, and we'll see you at the next one. Happy swimming.